Welcome to FlappyBird Lesson 3. In this lesson, we're going to further explore the use of the animation game object with controlling its frame rate, its scaling it down, and also how to position it off the screen. We're also going to bring back some old knowledge, which is how to make something move on its own. So let's get to it. So just by looking at code, we kind of recall that from the previous video, we were able to control the bird using the spacebar. That we press the spacebar, the bird went up, and when we didn't press the spacebar, the bird went down. A little bit of what I've added prior to starting the video is, again, because at this point you should be comfortable doing it, I've declared another resource called ring, which is this picture. Where is it? Ring 2. And you can kind of notice it's an 8x8 grid, which, again, it's important when we do animations because we don't want to actually display the whole picture. We want to display one of these. So we got to do a little bit of math. So here's the resource. And then from the resource, our very next section is always to go back to our init function, which is where we declare our variables. So we declare ring as a new animation. Using games images ring, which again comes from the resources after it's been preloaded. And because it's an 8x8 grid, there's 64 of them. We have to provide the game variable as the third parameter, and then we have to provide the width and the height of each picture. So this is a 512 by 512 picture, the whole picture, which means that the width of each one is 512 divided by 8. Let me kind of go back to that, because it's definitely a little more relevant in this one. This picture is 512 pixels wide. So ignore the ones underneath. If this is 512, then dividing by 8 gives us each one. Same thing with the height. The height is 512. So dividing the height by 8 gives us the height of each one. Because sometimes students start to go autopilot and they'll do a division by one. For instance, because I've seen students do this. They'll go up here to the bird and divide by 3 as well. But that doesn't make any sense. This is supposed to be the height of the bird. I'm going to go back to the bird. The height of each bird is the height of the whole picture because it's the same height. Again, there's no need for division. So just recall that when you use the division, it has to do with how many pictures are in that particular dimension, whether it's the width or the height. All right, so let's do just a quick ring.draw. Let's just see that it works. And I would always suggest you do this. Never code everything in one shot. Code it little pieces at a time. Let's look at it. And there's the ring. Okay. So one thing we'll notice that it seems like it's moving a little bit on the slow side. So let's go back here. And a ring has an animation, I should say. Let's go down to animation. Has a frame rate. So by default, right now, it's set to 1/4. So if we want to speed this up, we have to increase the number. Because notice, it was kind of slow moving around. So what I can do here is right after I create the ring, let's do a ring dot frame rate, and let's increase it. So we'll increase it by 1. Let's review it. Let's view it again. That's a lot smoother. All right, so sometimes you have to adjust the animation. Let me bring the bird back up. You can also do the same thing with the bird. Like if you think the bird is flapping too much, you can reduce its frame rate. I'm going to leave it alone though. All right, so now that we've done that little bit of cleanup, the ring should not be in the middle. The ring is supposed to fly onto the screen. So what we're going to do here is that I want to move its X position so it's off the screen. And the way we do that is to do ring.x. Now I'm going to write the code here, game.width. And I'm going to go back to the screen. Imagine this was a coordinate system where this is 0, 0. So this has a value of x equals 0. So as I start going this way, x becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, 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 blah. all the way to the very end over here. So what is this number? Well, this number is game.width, which if we go back to our index, ends up being 512. So we could do one of two things. We could set the ring's x position to 512, or what I like to do better is to use the dimensions of the game. We saw that with the y variable for the bar. So I'm going to do game.width plus a little bit, just to make sure that it's off the screen. So at this point, this is not a true test. We're not going to see it anymore. Doesn't mean it's over here, but you'll have to trust me that it's over here. So there we go. So we've positioned the ring off the screen by taking the width of the screen plus a little bit more. Now let's also position it randomly in the y direction. Actually, you know what? Let me take a different route with this. Let's do the set vector first. So because we want the ring to move on its own, it's not something we're manually controlling, we have to give it a set vector like we did in Zombie Thanksgiving. So we'll say speed of 2 and an angle of 90. And now what we're going to do, students also do this sometimes, is they'll forget to change the draw to a move. Now don't go autopilot. In Zombie Thanksgiving, we put the word true here because we want it to bounce. We don't want it to bounce. We actually just simply want it to move. Because by it being off the screen, what's going to happen is it's going to bounce, hit the edge of the screen, and then bounce off. We don't want that. So let's just leave it like this. Let's do F5 for refresh. And there we go. There's the ring on the screen. But the one thing you'll notice, though, is that it's always in the same spot. Now, we haven't handled the recycling yet. We'll handle that in a future video. So what we need to do is we need to randomly change its y direction. So let's say, let's give y a random value. And in this case, I am going to kind of hard code a number because I want to keep it within certain limits. So we'll say between 200 and 300. So if we go back here, initially it was smack in the middle. Let's see where it pops up now. Looks like it might actually have been in the middle again. Okay, this one is clearly a little lower. So we can actually do it a couple more times. I think we could probably get away with increasing the range a little bit. They all seem to be pretty much in the same spot. So we'll do this. Let's do a 150. Actually, let's do, what was it, 200? Let's do 175 and 325, just to increase it. Again, I'm not going to tweak it too much more. Obviously, you can see that you can control its y coordinate by just changing the random numbers. Let's see if that improves our spread a little bit of the coin. That was a little higher, definitely feels a little bit better. A little bit higher. Let's see if we get a low one. There's a low one. So now we're getting the ring to pop up in different locations. So let's go back to our presentation. So in this lesson, we saw how we can adjust an animation's frame rate by using the frame rate variable. We reviewed a little bit more of the coordinate system and how the width of the screen is used to position something with its x value. And then we brought back some old knowledge of using set vector and move to actually move an animation on its own. Enjoy.